Whoa. Stop. Sorry, Vivian, sorry. We gotta stop the skit. I just found out that technically, according to our, rules, you don't actually count as a witch.
Hang on a sec, Kren. What do you mean Vivian's not a witch?
Oh my gosh, Mason Claire, #1 original Vivian fan and host of the podcast Binary Break.
Kren, I got no time for plugs, and I'm only gonna ask you one more time before I get mad. What do you mean my beloved sweet little girl Vivian is not a witch?
Sorry, Claire. Look, the rules for classifying someone as a witch is that they have to use magic and be called a witch in the source material. I did a bunch of research, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't actually find anything that definitively refers to her as a witch.
Oh, come on. She does magic, and she wears a witch hat. If you showed a picture of Vivian to a bunch of random strangers and asked them to describe her, the first 2 words out of their mouth would probably either be witch ghost or ghost witch.
Well, technically she's not a ghost, she's a shadow siren.
I know that she's a shadow siren, okay? I know everything about Vivian. I know she's technically not a ghost. She's a spirit, a shadow beauty, whatever, it depends on the translation. But come on, even if she's not stated to be a witch within the script of the game in which she appears, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, she is widely understood to be a witch within the fandom. Even if she is not unambiguously presented as a witch within the text, she is received as being a witch by most people who play the game.
Yeah, I get that, but I needed a working definition for the show, so uses magic and is called a witch is what we ended up settling on.
You gonna make me do research?
Well, I'm not gonna make you do anything.
Fine, I'll do some research. Okay, I did some research. You're correct in that Vivian herself is never referred to as a witch. Nor are either of her sisters, Beldam or Marilyn.
Okay, so then that settles it.
However, the final boss of Thousand Year Door, the Shadow Queen, is, on occasion, referred to as a witch, in moments such as this. With the power of the witch, I will rule this pathetic world. Or this. Mario, I promise to follow you. I believe in you. Refuse the witch, or become her servant. And just look at the Shadow Queen. She looks like she is almost certainly the same species, or whatever, as Vivian and her sisters. She, at the very least, is called a witch and does magic.
Cool, okay, so then I can definitely do the Shadow Queen then, but I still can't do Vivian.
Okay, I see your point.
Right, so...
More research!
Yeah, don't worry about it. Masons love to do research, it's kind of our thing.
Okay, how about this? You have returned to us. Ah, Beldam, what ages have passed? Yes, my queen.
What am I looking at here?
Proof that the Shadow Queen is the queen of the Shadow Sirens. There's our link. They are the same thing. But that's not all. I also want you to take a look at this. The demon soul will possess Peach's body and bring to life the most powerful witch in millennia. The most powerful witch in millennia. What does that tell us? It tells us that the Shadow Queen is not the only witch in the world. There are other witches who are less powerful. Who are these witches? We don't see them. I submit that they are these 3. The Shadow Sirens, Beldam, Marilyn, and Vivian. The Shadow Queen may be the most powerful witch in millennia, but the Shadow Sirens are still regular, lesser witches. Not as good as her, but witches nonetheless, by association. Also, there's this. Yes, my glorious witch queen, destroy these impudent fools. Let's unpack this term, witch queen. Now that could mean one of two things. It could mean she is a witch who is also a queen, or it could mean that she is a queen of witches. As established in that previous screenshot, we know other witches exist. We know that the Shadow Sirens call the Shadow Queen my queen. And they all wear witch hats. So if you are correct, Vivian is not ever technically referred to as a witch. But if she and her sisters wear witch hats and do witch magic and serve an evil being called the Witch Queen, who is the most powerful witch in millennia, can we not, at that point, assume that Vivian and her sisters are probably witches?
Okay, I guess that checks out. You convinced me. Oh, no, we're way out of time. Sorry about that. Welcome to Monster Menagerie, brought to you by the Paladin Archives. My name is Mason Kren. Mason's the title, Kren's the name. This is the show where we break down monsters in pop culture and see just how they stack up when placed in the crosshairs of the Paladin Order. That's the people I work for. If you're new here, first off, welcome. And second, let me take a brief moment to explain how this all works. See, Paladins in the Order are something akin to supernatural hunters, keeping the unaware populace safe from all that goes bump in the night. Masons like me are helpers. We do all the paperwork and other boring stuff that paladins don't want to do. And me personally, I sit behind this lovely safe desk and field calls from paladins out in the world, breaking down whatever threat they may happen to be facing so they know what they're up against. Yes, me and the other Masons basically came up with this show because we were breaking down horror villains on our lunch break. Today I want to take a look at a witch that holds a lot of personal meaning and is just the absolute most adorable witch this year. Yeah, I see you, Kiki and Akko. I said what I said. Let's take a closer look at the youngest member of the Three Shadows, Vivian. Vivian, Paper Mario's shy Shadow Siren, was an NPC turned party member in the 2004 GameCube RPG Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, which got a remaster just last year in 2024, only 20 years later. Anyway, the game was a follow-up to the smash hit Paper Mario, introducing us to a slew of fun party members and is largely remembered as being one of the best games in the series. Beyond being just like the best partner in the game, no shade Goombella, you're awesome too, she is also one of the few canonically transgender characters in, well, basically all of Nintendo lore. Before we get too deep into the lore of Vivian and Paper Mario, I just want to ask that if you're enjoying our deep dives into witches and fiction this year, make sure you drop us a like and subscribe, and don't be afraid to leave a comment or 5 down below. All of it helps our little channel grow, and when it grows, the Paladin Archives brand in general grows. Alright, let's grab some crystal stars, a couple of super bombs, and dive through that 1,000-year door as we take a look at Vivian. The youngest member of the Three Shadows, or is it the Shadow Sirens? Vivian is, well, okay, let's actually take a moment here. What is Vivian? I'll be honest, when I first saw Vivian, I thought, oh, Ghost Witch. But Paper Mario has plenty of ghosts, and none of them look like this. No, Vivian and her sisters are shadows. Notice that no matter how high Mario goes, Vivian needs to have her tail attached to the ground. This causes some amusing stretching if Mario really needs to raise his verticality a bit, or if the floor suddenly drops out from underneath them. Now, while we don't get a comprehensive history of the three shadows, we know this much. Vivian is the youngest of three sisters, with her other siblings, Marilyn and Beldam, rounding out the trio. Minions of the villain Grotus, they are tasked with stopping Mario from obtaining crystal stars and opening the titular thousand-year door. Constantly abused and mistreated by Beldam, the eldest sister. Man, I keep wanting to say Bedlam. It was only a matter of time before Vivian broke. After their first failure to stop the mustachioed plumber, the trio tries again with a super bomb, which looks suspiciously like a frickin' hand grenade. Beldam misplaces it and blames this on Vivian, forcing her to look for it while she and Marilyn take a nap. Left alone and facing punishment for something that wasn't her fault, she bumps into Mario. Well, what's left of him. See, he was stripped of his name and appearance by a foe earlier in the game, and Vivian has no idea that this is, in fact, Mario. And that's when he does the unthinkable. He shows a modicum of human kindness to Vivian. Remember, kids, the real villain here is toxic relationships. Whether friends, family, or co-workers, no one has the right to make you feel less than. You are enough, and you are worthy. Vivian abandons her terrible sisters and bands together with Mario and company, dedicating herself to repaying his kindness. Because he lost his name and identity, she uses her powers and skills to help him reclaim it. After a bit of searching and some eavesdropping on birds, the duo discover the shapeshifter villain Dupless has taken Mario's entire identity and even fooled all of his other companions. After initially bailing when she realized it was Mario she'd been helping all along, she returns right at the clutch moment to repay Mario's kindness. With Dupless defeated and Mario's identity restored, Vivian cements her role in Mario's entourage. Now, you may be wondering what all these crystal hearts and thousand-year door business might be. Well, in the non-Vivian plot, like anyone cares, Princess Peach went and got herself possessed by none other than the Shadow Queen. You see, Beldam apparently orchestrated this entire plot. She lured in Princess Peach, spread rumors about a great treasure, and got Mario to break open the seal of the thousand-year door, all just to release her mistress. But with the power of the crystal stars, Peach's encouragement, and this Vivian they found along the way, Mario and company defeat the Shadow Queen and seal her away forever. Hooray! So, there's the story of Vivian. After saving the day, she forgave her sisters and returned to live with them. Goombella insists Beldam has given up on evil, so they should live happily ever after, but, I'm not sure that was the smartest idea. Oh well. So, her story duly exposited, let's take a look at exactly what this Shadow Siren can do in battle. Working out Vivian's physical abilities is a tough one. Unlike Bayonetta, who shows off her guns, or Sebastian, who showed us the meaning of haste, Vivian is from an RPG, and she's not the main character. She only features in a handful of cutscenes and gives us nothing to work with when it comes to strength or speed. Still, while I can't estimate how fast Vivian can run, or glide, I can look at her behavior and see what we're most likely to deal with. And the first thing we learn about Vivian, she is shy, timid, reserved. Years, perhaps centuries, of abuse from her elder sister has led her to constantly be in a defensive mode, constantly ready to back down to others' wishes, whims, and threats. Despite clearly not having been responsible for losing either the picture of Mario or the Super Bomb, Vivian accepts the blame and punishment. She scours the grounds of Twilight Town for the weapon that Beldam not only lost but broke, all to avoid her sister's wrath. Now, that's not to say she can't be bold under the right circumstances. Not only was she inspired by Mario to stand up to her sisters and save the day, early on, before she even knows who he is, she gives our hero Mario a little peck to thank him for being so kind. That doesn't negate the fact that without proper motivation, paladins are not going to be facing a confident Shadow Siren. Now with that in mind, let's see what she can do. Fortunately, being a video game character, her abilities are well documented. Unfortunately for her, they're also very limited. Let's start with Shade Fist. This little firecracker of a witch can zip over to her opponent and deliver a knuckle sandwich straight to the kisser. With fire. Yes, when Vivian attacks, she lights her opponents on fire. That's a heck of a punch. But her pyrokinetic tendencies don't stop there. With a flourish, our little Firestarter femme can light entire groups on fire, piercing their defense. That theoretically means that paladin garments, especially the heavy garments, would be useless against her. Next is that lovely ability to infatuate. With a blown kiss, our little witch befuddles her enemies, leaving them confused. Can you blame them though, with a cutie like that? But let's look at her signature ability, Veil. As a Shadow Siren, Vivian and her sisters have the ability to fade into a shadow, like a little pocket dimension. More than this, we know she can bring objects and people with her. She can use this to dodge attacks, maneuver around obstacles, and even spy on others. A versatile and powerful feat. So, how do we counter all of this? Well, normally I'd say fire retardant vestments, but her abilities specifically ignore armor. Even her normal punches have the chance to light our paladins on fire, so don't get hit. And if you do, stop, drop, and roll, I guess. For reals though, we're much more likely to have to remedy Vivian's fire than prevent it. So I'm thinking that at least one member of the responding parish needs to have a fire extinguisher on them, which is not a recommendation I make too often. As for her infatuate, according to my research, it inflicts the confused status, which can lead to a few different things. Targets might attack friendlies, attempt to flee, or they might even assist Vivian, amongst other things. I'm not thrilled at the idea that one little blown kiss can mean our paladins start shooting each other. Still, we deal with witches and vampires on the regular, so I'm thinking we need to focus on spiritualists, anti-specter and anti-demon, despite the fact that witches typically fall under anti-heretic. But that veil. There's apparently no way to notice she's nearby, and for some reason, people seem to really want to spill their guts when she's listening in. Maybe spreading out a bit and utilizing in-ear comm devices. I don't normally like to split the party, but this actually negates two things. First, her fiery jinx loses its sting if she's not hitting the entire parish at once. But, as a bonus, if they're spread out and utilizing in-ear comms, she can only ever spy on one side of the conversation. And a good parish is taught to be very cautious with information being shared on comm devices. A good parish. Huh. She's actually a bit more dangerous than I expected. How dangerous? Well, you'll have to see in the next section, won't you? As a Mason in the Paladin Order, my job is to field calls from investigating paladins and get them information on their targets. They go out and hunt vampires. I stay behind my nice, safe desk. Calls come in, and paladins need info. Is that a generic water demon skulking around the park fountains, or did a wayward Kappa end up there? You gotta be able to tell these things apart and act accordingly. And with an entire archive behind me, I'm well equipped to fill in paladins with anything their little hearts could ask. So what do they ask for? Threat level. Yeah, apparently responding parishes care less about the history of a particular Midianite's travel from the old world to the US and more about whether they need standard ammunition or blessed ammunition to bring it down. To that end, we have a shorthand here we call a Paladin threat level. This is a rating from 1 to 6 that gives Paladins an at-a-glance idea of how dangerous their target is. Now, technically, the scale goes all the way up to 10, but anything above a 6 is pointless to mention. They're more like hypothetical dangers, things that the Order probably couldn't actually handle. For instance, let's say you're dealing with a wayward turtle demon, a single paladin hops on its back, and boom, all done, threat level 1. But let's say it's something more like a dark artifact created by the union of a furious monster king and a fair and lovely princess, residing between worlds, beyond reach, slowly growing, spreading, devouring reality after reality until all existence has been wiped clean. That could be a 10. Maybe an 8 if we can figure out how to move between realities. Don't worry, R&D is working on it. Point is, the threat level is what's going to tell responding paladins in the field how to handle Vivian. Now, let's look at her closely. Primarily, we have to worry about fire, but that fire is actually not too bad when you compare it to other more motivated creatures. Vivian is a stone's throw away from being a pacifist. She doesn't like confrontation, is constantly worried about being yelled at or punished by her sister. As much as I hate the idea, intimidation could play a huge factor in bringing in Vivian. Heavy vestments might take a bite out of her punches, but we're going to need something to extinguish the flames and piercing damage of her fiery jinx. That said, Vivian has the lowest starting HP of any of Mario's companions in the game. In fact, the only character that comes close to her stat levels is a literal newborn Yoshi. If we can hit her, we can take her out. I feel like patience is going to be a big part of this. She'll likely flee several times if allowed, so surprise tactics and tranquilization will be key. I have no idea how to contain Vivian. It's heavily implied that she can just ghost through the floor, so utilizing pacifying methods to keep her sedated will be paramount. If pressed, I might have an idea. If you pay attention, Vivian and her sisters always have to maintain contact with the floor, as I mentioned earlier. If Mario goes higher, Vivian stretches to maintain contact with the ground. If I were pressed to find something that would contain her, it'd be an isolated platform over a deep, deep pit. Something so deep she couldn't see the bottom. Would that work? Maybe. Beyond a few lucky hits, I think as long as the responding parish acts in accordance with their training, Vivian isn't likely to hurt too many people. I won't give her a 1, obviously, but she's not pushing the upper limits. I give Vivian a threat level of 2. Parish-level paladins requested equip with heavy vestments and fire suppression devices, maintain distance between individual paladins, and utilize in-ear comms to minimize eavesdropping. Utilize sedation weaponry. Assumed target cannot be contained. Well, only one thing left to do now. Let's put a bow, a very pretty one, on this analysis by confirming her witch type. If you've been following along all season, you know the Order recognizes 3 basic categories of witch: Hellborn, Covenant, and Pure. Hellborn witches acquire their power from pacts with demons, or in our case, just making a deal with a more powerful, sentient creature works. Covenant witches utilize artifacts or tomes to cast individual spells, and in doing so, trade tiny bits of their soul, often unknowingly. Lastly, pure witches are the least powerful, but as they get their abilities from nature, or some in-world analog, there's no danger to their soul. Vivian is pretty straightforward. No staff, no books, no deals. She's just talented. Vivian is a clear-cut, pure witch. So, did I do our little Vivian justice? She might be the most unique witch this year, and certainly the only one I had to actually make a case for. A big thanks to Mason Claire for the research there. I had some backups if she hadn't worked out, but I'm super glad I got to do a deep dive into Vivian. And what did you guys think about it? Did you enjoy the breakdown? Do you think you could handle an encounter with the Shadow Siren herself? Well, no one will have to argue about whether or not next month's witch, or should I say witches, counts. Get pumped, because it's Halloween, so I'm pulling out a good one just for you. Speaking of good ones, we're almost at the end of the year, and if you've been with us for season 1 and 2, you know what that means. End of the year special. That's right, like years prior, we will be taking all the witches we looked at this year and stacking them against one another to determine our Witch of the Year. And like previous years, I've gathered a team of witchy experts to help me out. You won't want to miss this one. And hey, did you have a witch we haven't covered this year? It's probably not going to be featured in a full episode at this point, but I'm looking at a bunch of honorable mentions during the end of the year special, so feel free to drop them into the comment section. The theme for this year's special, by the way, Witch Trial. Don't miss it. Voting will open at the end of November for you to weigh in on which witch reigns supreme in 2025. Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching, and if you don't mind, don't forget to do all the YouTube things. It really helps out. As for me, I have to get going. In exchange for helping me with Vivian today, Mason Claire said I had to sit down with her while she explains Digimon lore in depth. I feel like I'm going to need some snacks for this one. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's hiding out there. Okay, like, I get the fire attacks, but is blowing a kiss really that effective on the battlefield? Gosh. Vivian, Paper Mario's shy Shadow Siren. Vivian, Paper Mario's shy Shadow Siren. Vivian, Paper Mario's shy Why did I do this to myself?